Welcome to QuickTale English. Today's story is a dark mystery about fame and murder. Deadly Autograph. Detective Sarah Reyes stood in a large hotel room. The room was luxurious, but the mood was terrible. It was a very bad night. Outside, the rain was loud. Inside, the silence was louder. The victim was a young woman named Anna. She was 22 years old. Anna was a big fan of the famous actor Julian Vance. Last night, she met him at a fan event here in the hotel. Sarah looked at the small table. There was a glass of water. There was a simple white note. The note was important. It was a goodbye note. Anna's friends said she suffered from depression. The note was short. It said, "I cannot fight anymore. Goodbye." But it was the signature that was strange. At the bottom of the note, there was a big, stylish signature, Julian Vance. Why would the actor sign a suicide note, Sarah thought? Did he give her an autograph and then she wrote the note on the back? It was possible, but Sarah did not like simple answers. Julian Vance was the biggest movie star in the world right now. He was famous, charismatic, and rich. He was staying in the hotel, one floor below Anna's room. Sarah went to speak with him. Julian Vance sat on a soft sofa. He wore expensive clothes. He looked sad and concerned. He had a handsome face. He looked like a nice man. "It's terrible, Detective," Julian said. "Anna was a sweet girl. She told me she loved my work. I signed many notes and photos for the fans. I signed them with my favorite short phrase, 'Forever in the spotlight,' and my name." "Did you see Anna after the event finished?" Sarah asked. "No, I did not," Julian replied quickly. "My personal assistant, Mark, took me straight to my room. I was tired. I slept from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I did not leave the room." Sarah looked at Mark, the assistant. Mark stood quietly by the door. He was a small man with glasses. He wore a simple black suit. He did not look famous or rich. He just looked tired. "Mark, can you confirm Julian Vance's story?" Sarah asked. "Yes, Detective. Mr. Vance came to his room at 10:45 p.m. I ordered him some tea. I stayed until 11:30 p.m. I locked the door behind me. I have the security codes for the elevator, but I did not use them last night." The investigation continued for 3 days. The official report said Anna's death was a suicide. The police found no evidence of a killer. Sarah was unhappy, but the case was closed. She put the case file in her desk. 2 weeks later, the phone rang. It was the police chief. "Sarah, we have a new body. Same signature, same actor. You need to come." Sarah quickly drove to the second location. This time, the victim was a man named Michael. Michael was a reporter for a small magazine. He was found in his small apartment far from the luxurious hotel. The scene was different, but the small note was the same. Michael was dead. On the floor, next to his hand, was a piece of white paper. At the bottom, in the same stylish letters, was the signature, Julian Vance, and the same phrase, "Forever in the spotlight." "This is not a suicide, Chief," Sarah stated. Michael was not a fan. He was working on a story about Julian Vance. This is a message. This is murder. Sarah returned to the hotel. Julian Vance was filming a new movie. He looked shocked when Sarah told him about Michael. He was also angry. "This is crazy, Detective," Julian shouted. "Someone is trying to ruin my life. I never met this Michael man. My manager needs to call my lawyer now." "We know you did not kill them, Mr. Vance. You were in your room when Michael died. The killer is using your signature. We need to know why." Sarah took the two notes, Anna's note and Michael's note. She looked closely at the handwriting. The handwriting of the note itself, "I cannot fight anymore, goodbye," was different for each victim, but the signature was perfectly the same. The phrase was always, forever in the spotlight. Sarah knew this was Julian Vance's favorite phrase. He used it on every autograph. Sarah went back to Michael's apartment. She searched his computer. Michael's last story was about Julian Vance. The title was The Stolen Voice. The stolen voice? What does that mean? Sarah thought. She looked at Michael's notes. He had written about Julian Vance's new successful screenplay, The Desert Star. It was a huge hit. Michael's notes suggested that Julian Vance did not write The Desert Star. Michael thought the script was stolen from a ghostwriter. The notes mentioned a name. Mark, the assistant, the quiet man with the glasses who always stood by the door, the man who was with Julian Vance when Anna died, the man who had the key to the elevator and knew Vance's schedule. Sarah looked at the two notes again, the suicide note from Anna, the death note from Michael. The text of the notes was different, but the signed phrase was the same. Forever in the spotlight. Sarah suddenly had an idea. She went to a bookstore. She bought the book based on Julian Vance's famous movie, The Desert Star. She opened the book and read the first page of the introduction. Nothing. She turned to page 142, a scene where the hero writes a secret note before a big fight. The hero writes to his sister. The hero writes, "I cannot fight anymore. Goodbye." Sarah felt cold. Anna's suicide note text, "I cannot fight anymore. Goodbye," was not a simple phrase. It was a line from the screenplay, The Desert Star, a line that only the writer would know well. Sarah drove back to the hotel. She found Mark, the assistant, packing bags in Julian's room. Julian was in the shower. "Mark, let's talk about the notes," Sarah said softly. The phrase, "forever in the spotlight," is Mr. Vance's favorite, but the sentence, "I cannot fight anymore, goodbye," is a line from the screenplay, The Desert Star. Anna was a fan, but she did not know that line. It is not famous. Mark stopped packing. His face was white. I do not know that line, Detective. I only help Mr. Vance with travel." Michael, the reporter, knew the truth about the script. He knew Julian Vance stole it. "You wrote that script, Mark. You are the real writer of The Desert Star. You put that line on Anna's note because you were angry. You put that line on Michael's note because he found your secret." Sarah looked at Mark's glasses. He looked defeated. His professional face was gone. Now only anger remained. "He took everything," Mark whispered, looking at Vance's expensive clothes. 5 years of my life. He signed my words, forever in the spotlight, and took the credit. He laughed at the fans who loved the false writer. Anna was too close to him. She knew my handwriting from my work notes. Michael knew too much. "I signed the notes, Detective, but I used the stamp Julian uses for his fan mail. He signs so much mail he uses a special stamp with his famous signature. It's a very good fake, but it is a stamp. I put the stamp on the paper, and then I put the paper on their bodies. I used his spotlight to send my message." Sarah showed Mark the small metal stamp hidden in his shoe. The stamp was a perfect copy of Julian Vance's famous signature. The deadly autograph was not a real signature. It was a weapon. Sarah called the chief. It was a strange end to the case. The movie star, Julian Vance, was safe from prison, but his reputation was destroyed. The quiet assistant, Mark, went to jail, but his secret, that he was the true writer, was finally public. Fame and secrets led to 2 deaths. The deadly autograph was a reminder. Sometimes the greatest dangers hide not in the stars, but in the shadows of the spotlight. The world thought Mark was just an assistant. They were wrong. He was a writer, a victim, and a killer. Thank you for joining QuickTale English. Subscribe for more detective stories and English vocabulary practice. See you next time.